Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. In this video we're going to talk about reaction time and this little guy, the shot timer, and how when this is used incorrectly, it's basically ballistic masturbation. Pretty good time, right? Here's the thing. That time applies to this set condition at this set distance and the fact that I was warmed up. I've been out here for about an hour doing various things. I just started working on the shot timer and decided to make a video about it. The shot timer is a very valuable tool, but like I said in the beginning, if not used properly, it does basically equate to ballistic masturbation. And this might hurt some feelings. It's very important, and I'm going to make my case. The shot timer has no place whatsoever in self-defense focused shooting. There's been a troubling trend recently. I don't know how recently, but I started noticing it probably about 2 years ago, and it's just gotten progressively worse. And that's the fact that people are using shot timers as their public metric for how well they shoot or how well they perform or how fast they are. And that's awesome. The shot timer does not lie. The shot timer is going to tell you how fast you responded to an audible beep that you knew was coming in conditions that you set for yourself. Even if you have someone else set the conditions for you, you're still not getting a realistic demonstration of your skill set under an actual threat to life. Now, you can emotionally try to argue with me on that, but can you factually try to argue with me on that? Now, I'm sure there's some people out there nodding their heads, but I'm also sure there's some people watching this video right now trying to think of a way to motherfuck me on this. The fact of the matter is, the timer is something that can easily introduce training artificialities into your personal training and your personal practice. Now, I am a self-defense focused instructor, so the shot timer has absolutely no use for me, and I'm going to make my case as to why the shot timer has absolutely no use for self-defense focused shooting. The shot timer has one significant value: it cannot lie. It cannot lie under the conditions in which you set up whatever the situation may be. If you're going for how fast you're able to fire one round from concealment with your hands in this Mickey Mouse surrender position, then the shot timer is going to tell you exactly how fast you did that. It gives you a metric. Metrics are awesome. The problem when we talk about self-defense focused shooting is there are no metrics. Everything is theory until there is application applied. One shooting doesn't tell you the future for every single shooting. So if I spend a lot of time working on my surrender position draw stroke and I'm got my draw down to sub-second one round, and that's awesome, that's super great performance. You know the beep is coming. You're not actually thinking and processing a threat, you're responding to an audible tone. There is no situation which you would responsibly draw and fire a weapon based on an audible tone alone when we're talking about self-defense shooting. Now, for competition-based shooting, then that's exactly how competitions works. You get your cold walker nod, and you get your set, and you get your layout and which targets are shoots, which ones are no shoots. You can go through and you can game it, talk about how to really clean up your efficiency and movement for the best possible time, because it's a competition. You get a beep, you do your course, you're done. But that's competition-based shooting. I'm talking specifically about self-defense focused shooting, and that's the premise for this video. So for those of you that shoot competition, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about self-defense only. If you've been through a Sage class or you've been following my YouTube channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of science, because science is generally fact. Now, of course, some science in the past has been disproved, and we obviously want to strive for the most accurate information. But the cool thing about facts is the facts do not care about your opinion. Facts are true whether you want to believe them or not. And if you do not believe them to such a strong degree, it's your job to disprove them. Barring disproving facts, facts continue to exist as they are. The fact is, you can react faster to an audible tone than you can to a visual stimulus. So, how does that work? Well, I'm not going to go too far into it, but the way the ear works. We've got sound. It comes in, it vibrates the ear bones, it goes into the coachella. Inside the coachella, there's a bunch of hair cells. They change that sound into bioelectric signals. So, it actually processes it very, very fast, because much of everything, almost everything until that bioelectrical exchange, is passive. So you've got, for recognition of a sound, the general average, scientific average that's been measured is 0.05 for recognition. Now there's a thing called a Staples reflex, which is our reaction to a really loud sound. That has been measured at 0.025. That is really, really fast. The ear processes sound faster than the eyes can process light. Now, there's some people out there already thinking, well, light's faster than sound. That's absolutely true. The brain don't care about how fast it is, only it cares about when it actually received. So the time measurement does not start until said sound is received. Now, would you process someone 400 meters away shooting at you before you heard the shot? Absolutely. But you'd have to see them first. And that's, of course, the rub of the thing, is the sound and the visual processing can't be measured until it's actually received by the body. Now let's talk about the eye. Cornea takes in the light, the transmission. It reflects that light along with the iris onto the retina. And the retina contains a bunch of photoreceptors. And those photoreceptors convert that signal into they convert that light into bioelectric signals, just like the ear. It's all converted into a bioelectric message, which is transferred to the brain. The brain is then responsible for disseminating, figuring out, and sending that message where it needs to go. So if I have my shot timer, and I set my shot timer down, and I hit start, and I just stand here and wait, if I've got it set on a 3-second or a 5-second delay, I know roughly in my mind what 3 seconds or 5 seconds is, so I'm already primed, psychologically primed, to react to the beep as soon as it comes. My performance is going to vary slightly, but my performance when shooting under an audible tone only is always going to be faster. Not always, but 100,000, well, let's just say 99.99, however many nines you want to add to it, 9 to the 9th power, more accurate than my visual response time. And of course, there's other outside factors that can lengthen or shorten our reaction time based on the conditions, again, that we may set for ourselves. So what I wanted to kind of do to underscore this point is I grabbed 2 of my students, 2 of my alumni, and I ran them through some simunitions based scenarios, actually drills rather. I took Logan. Logan is military. He's got an extensive military background. He's a very accomplished pistol shooter. I ran him through first. The next student I ran through is Cole. Cole is relatively new to shooting. He has no law enforcement or military background. He shoots competitively, kinda, like it's something that he dabbles in, just as we all have at one point or time, or still do. But he's very self-defense focused. But their skill levels are very, very different. So I wanted 2. Now again, this is anecdotal because it wasn't completely a scientific study, but it's going to underscore the point, whether people like it or not. I set up a series of drills, and you're about to watch those drills take place. Now here's how this process works for these scenarios. Basically, each student went through 4 different drills. They're not really scenarios, because there is a difference. First, we established a baseline. We had him fire a single round under drill performances at a certain distance. It was an arbitrary distance, basically the distance to which the shot timer would react to the simunitions gun, because the microphone in it, while it can be adjusted, not super sensitive, so we weren't able to get like 15, 30 yards. So what you're looking at there is the very first step is you're just seeing what his reaction is, what his time is to the actual shot timer. After that, we had him respond to a visual threat. Now the way we did this is we took the CED 7000 and we set it up for instantaneous activation. So the role player, our bad guy, he's got a knife and he's got a timer. He pulls the knife and hits the timer button at the exact same time. So basically, the start button is when the knife can visually be seen by Logan, or in this case, Logan or Cole, as they go through the scenarios. Now after that, we set up a run of 5 where the student, either Logan or Cole, had no idea which of the 3 gentlemen was the threat. Now we're still looking at a drill here because there's no context, there's no script, there's no scenario-based settings. It's just 3 potential threats that he's facing at the same time, and at a certain point, one of them is going to present the knife, hit the timer at the same time. I go back to, this isn't perfectly scientific. There's obviously ways to do this better, but that's, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. I'm just trying to underline a point here, not change the world. Finally, I actually introduced a scenario to both shooters. Scenario was basically set up as 3 gentlemen jump out of a car. They're very upset that Logan or Cole, as their runs go through, cut them off. Now one of those 3 guys, it's very similar to their last evolution. In the fact that there's 3 of them, but he doesn't know which one's a threat, and now they're allowed to move and talk and basically provide other distractions that he has to cope with. So again, like I said, first up, I'm going to show you Logan's 5, 5, 5, and 5, and then I'll show you Cole's 5, 5, 5, and 5, and we'll look at the averages at the end.
later on in the speech, did you go off?
I have no idea.
Damn.
Who the hell is Logan?
Yeah, you got any good ones?
Democratic headquarters. Hey man, you cut me off. You not see what you're doing,
dude? Learn to drive. That's the head.
Going, dude.
Go back to Bama, you dork.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Really? Dude, man, go back to Bama. Yeah. You learn to drive like that. What the man? Really, dude? Really gotta be that much of a dick?
What's up, buddy? Back up.
Come on.
Just one talk.
Back up. Yeah.
Back up.
Back up. Back up.
Seriously. What the fuck?
Everyone
Really?
let it drive.
Pull it up just to see.
Game at all yesterday? Nothing.
Hey man, who you voting for? What? Hey man, you hit my car!
What's up? Really?
What the hell?
Hey man, back up.
Oh shit!
Hey man, sorry.
I
don't really understand what's wrong with you people. Man, really? Learn to drive. Come on.
What is wrong with you?
Really?
What
Come on,
shoes are
man.
those?
Come on, man. Really? Why are you doing this?
What's going on?
Where
Learn
did
to
you learn to
drive.
drive?
I mean, it's
Come on,
just,
really,
you know,
dude?
First day.
Really, man?
What's up?
Yeah, okay.
Come on,
Hey,
really?
dude, what
Hey,
is the
get
problem?
him.
What? Where are you going?
Seriously? Come on.
Yeah, you guys need to take it easy. I'm sorry.
Come on.
So for those of you that are still with me and didn't get bored to tears by watching that, the reason I did 5 reps each is because I wanted to give a pretty decent sized sample. Obviously I could have run them through 10 or 15 or 20, but this video would be really, really long, and I think I've underscored my point. Is there a significant difference between an audible and a visual reaction time? And is there a significant difference between a visual reaction time and a visual reaction time where you actually have to think about a problem instead of just mindlessly shooting? When he's facing the role player with the knife, he knows the knife is coming, he knows where it's coming from. That obviously creates, he's able to game it a little bit. So there's a training artificiality there. But as you can see, as it advances, the shot times, the times from processing the visual threat to actually responding with the gun, they definitely, they become a little bit longer. They vary greatly from when he was just reacting to the tone. Is this a big deal? Some of you might be thinking, well, the time difference isn't that significant. And no, it isn't, depending on how you think about time. Now me, I like to break seconds down because we can get stuff done in under a second. We all know that. A really good draw stroke with 1 round fired is under a second, like right around in the 0.9 range is really fast. There's guys out there that are faster than that. There's guys out there that shoot faster than me. I'll be the first person to say that. But how fast have you thought about, or how often have you been able to explore how fast you are responding to a visual threat? The thing about a shot timer is it's not going to give you that. Now, there are training artificialities in simulations as well. They're wearing safety gear, so there's no fear of real injury. They might be afraid of like the pain penalty you get when you get hit, but it's not going to kill them, and they know that. And of course, another factor is they know something's coming. Even when I give them 3 role players, 3 guys, either in a drill or a scenario base where there's, you know, action and talking and insults and all that stuff floating around, they know one of them needs to get shot at some point near in the future, because I'm not going to drag the scenario out for 5 days. If I had my way, every simunitions class would be done like this. I'd hand you a helmet, I'd hand you a gun, I'd be like, hey man, I'll see you in probably the next 2 weeks, keep your helmet on. That would be more realistic, but training just doesn't, there's always gonna be some kind of artificiality that we have to deal with. The helmet in itself is an artificiality. But just looking at these two students as they went through their times, you can see that there is a, depending on how you use the definition of the term, a remarkable difference in their ability to process and react based on a tone versus a visual reaction. You may be thinking, well, that's all well and good, and that's pretty cool, and that's really good anecdotal information, but how does that help me? Well, it helps you to unmarry yourself from this thing. I do use shot timers. I use them when I'm out on the range by myself practicing, and I only use the tone, and the tone is an initiator. It's my go. Just because it's really hard to set up a device to give you a visual go, especially a realistic visual go. We're always going to have those training artificialities, but someone who performs really well on this at very set distances and very scripted situations, that doesn't actually tell me anything, and how am I supposed to learn something from watching that person do that? There's no variance in their method. If all you do is go to beeps, shoot 4 or 5, however many rounds at a certain set distance from a certain set hand position, are you really helping yourself? Now, if you're trying to find a metric for if your draw stroke is improving, see, that's where these things are great. Beyond that, they're pretty useless. And if you're isolating a skill, that's not a self-defense focus. So if I want to use this to see where my draw stroke is at, perfect use of a shot timer, because a shot timer, ain't gonna lie, it's not going to give me my real-world cold draw stroke except for the very first time I step out on the range, and even then there's some artificiality in it because I know the tone's coming. But it's as close as we can get to the real thing. Better than that is to have a practice partner, but that's a totally different conversation. So that allows me to isolate a skill set. But if I'm using this to initiate a self-defense based scenario that I have set up for myself or someone has set up for me, is there actual value in that versus finding a better way to do it? The fact of the matter is, if you really want to step up your level of realism, you need to get into force-on-force classes, or you need to find a way to do force-on-force your own, such as airsoft. It's a decent substitute. It's not as psychologically as effective, psychophysiologically as effective as simunitions or UTM, but it's pretty good. It's not bad, especially since you probably have access to it, whereas most people don't have access to simunitions or UTM without taking an actual course, which costs money, and I understand that. But this thing right here has absolutely no place in self-defense training. It's used to find a metric to show an arc of improvement or a de-evolution to your skill, to find out where you're at under a certain skill set, to see if your splits have increased, to see if your transition from this threat to this threat has increased. And even then, that's more of a drill than it is a scenario. I can think of no way that a shot timer can be used in a realistic fashion for a self-defense based training scenario. So anybody who's touting the shot timer as something for self-defense training doesn't understand what the fuck they are talking about. And that's just the bottom line. This is not self-defense based. It is a timer used for a metric. And I gotta underscore that again because there's so many people out there that think that this equates to how they're gonna perform on the street. And the answer to that question is maybe. And it's a huge maybe. You're much better served finding a more realistic way to shoot. Probably some chapped asses at this point, and that's fine. Hopefully you take the emotion out of your resistance to the idea and think about, are you really striving to make your personal practice as realistic as possible? Because if you're just doing beeps at certain distances from the Mickey Mouse hands position, I'm going to go ahead and say no. When's the last, let's just say you're going to use a shot timer, and that's fine. When's the last time you ran the tone with you on your phone? Or you carrying shopping bags? Or you with one hand? Or maybe you laying on your back reacting to a threat from there. You know, there's other ways you can do that. One of the things I like to do, and I don't use a shot timer to do it, but you definitely could if you really had to, is I'll have a student pull out his phone and I'll be like, hey, tell me what the gross domestic product was for Mongolia in 1963. And while he's deep in Googling and his mind shifts gears and goes somewhere completely else, he gets a visual threat or an audible that leads to a visual. So I'll be like, hey, motherfucker, and then he looks up and there's a threat with a gun, which is a target with a cardboard arm, but it's better than beep. Never in your life will you be attacked by a somewhat pleasant audible tone. You'll be attacked by a human being, and you may or may not get an audible warning that that's going to happen. Now, you are much more likely to have a car accident than you are to have to shoot someone in self-defense. But if you're one of the people watching this channel, watching this video, it makes me think that you're probably at least somewhat self-defense focused, because if you're competition focused, then I already told you, this is great for competition, this is made for competition. If you're self-defense focused and you're watching this video, think to yourself, am I doing anything Or am I just doing the same old shit over and over again? Have I found a comfortable level of performance and I continue to repeat that comfortable level of performance because I'm not willing to move on to something else and be at a lower level of operation? This year alone, I've had over 500 students in classes, and that includes a lot of force-on-force classes. I have guys who have worshipped at the altar of this thing, and I have guys that have not. And what I've seen is everybody performs roughly in the same area until we start to step up on scenario-based training. If we're all just drawing and shooting paper, everyone's on the same page. But when I started introducing people into actual scenarios that are based on real-life events, guys that have worshipped at the altar of the shot timer tend to fail miserably. I've had some pretty relatively well-known shot timer guys from the Instagram community come through classes, and they shit the bed in their training scenarios because they were used to a beep and not an actual physical person giving them visible and audible cues that they're about to fuck them up. Now, I'm a little salty about this, and you can probably tell by my language. And the reason I'm salty isn't because I have some kind of anger towards shot timers, because I don't. It's an inanimate object. I'm worried about this disturbing trend continuing and more and more people falling victim to it, and then eventually it leads them potentially getting hurt. Now, I know there's some hyperbole in that, and I get that, but the fact remains that people do find themselves as victims or potential victims of crime every single day. We need to set ourselves up for success. Law enforcement, military, you definitely need to set yourself up for success because you are probably more likely to find yourself in a violent encounter. The shot timer is not doing you any good for self-defense focused shooting. For skill isolation, skill improvement, measure of metrics, absolutely. But it's not going to do anything for you for that unknown situation in the future. I don't know what else I can say on this subject. I think I've covered the basics and really kind of shown, at least I hope I've shown some of you, where I'm coming from with how I separate the shot timer from scenario-based training. It's obviously up to you to ultimately make the decision, but just keep in mind that the reaction times, audible to visual reaction times, that's not my opinion, that's science. And you should do your independent research to verify that, and you will find plenty of research out there that verifies what I've just said. The rest of it is my opinion. Me saying the shot timer isn't for self-defense training is my opinion. But it's a very experienced opinion, and it's based on my own personal skill level, my own personal training, my own personal experience, and how many students I train per year. And of course, how many students I train per year is definitely the last and the lowest part of that because I can't base their experience on my experience. So I encourage you, if you're using a shot timer for self-defense focused training and practice, to stop. Stop it. Just stop it. Do something else that's more realistic. Think of how real life is going to happen and try to incorporate that as realistically as possible into whatever practice and training that you are doing. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.